You ain't never seen a man turn leg gold with his hands. You ain't never seen a man get a queen wet with a glance. Water turn wine, whole wide world mind in my mind. In and out of time, my light shine bright for the blind. Something about the way I do it. 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 Said I'm gonna be a millionaire soon, but I already knew it. I'ma die the bullets fluid. All this winning therapeutic. Something about the way I do it. Something about the way I do it. They be trying to drain my energy up with the battery is not included. Women trying to be recruited. Let them do it, then I bought it. What is cute, then she folded. Something about the way I do it. I remember playing ring around the rosy. Now I got a pocket full of OZs. Water dollars, wallet full of old cheese. Got a Glock, a cock and pop a police. Block a boom, shaka lock up. Bada shot him while he rock a rosary. Got your mama watching out the nosebleed. Sloppy toppy while I'm trying to go sleep. Something about the way I do it. I ball out like a nudist hooping.
All all so-called organizations that pump black this, black that, all of that. The issue that I always had was that there was no real cohesive manner that they expressed themselves, in the sense that, okay, if our ancestors was king, like if your father was a king, right? That means then that you're a what?
I'm a prince.
Right. So if your great-great-great-great-grandfather was a king, what does that make you? Right, an heir to the throne, right?
Yeah.
Right. So if that's the case, then if we've been calling ourselves kings and queens, all of this stuff, all of these years, and all these different DVDs and tapes and whatever, and we allegedly have this nobility that we allegedly know we got, then why is it that the same inheritance of nobility is not passed on to us? You understand what I'm saying? Like, they got the very term king and queen from us. They got the very term of nobility and all of that from us. So how are we disenfranchised from it here in America when everybody else seem to be able to have it for their country, right? You got kings and queens in Africa, right? You got kings and queens in China to this day, right? You got kings and queens in Japan, all these different places. Well, what about the kings and queens in America? Where they at?
Mm-hmm.
They can't be Caucasian people, but we know that they didn't really get here and really popped off their situation to the late 1800s, really, if we really want to be serious. So when we talk about what's happening today with the Merkel thing, first of all, let's get it straight again that Harry and them is not even from England. They're not English. They're German, okay? Their real name is the Coburg-Saxe-Gotha, right, who are descended from the original so-called Bavarian line of nobles that descended from Otto I and Edith in 962 AD that set up what was called the Holy Roman Empire, which was an empire of melanated so-called Hebrew, so-called Moorish nobility that were the rulers over the region that we now call Europe, that at the time was referred to as Al-Europa or Al-Germania or Gaul, or in the southern regions, Andalusia, right? So remember, Rome was in a dark age, right, for mad years. And these Western people based their whole society on Rome, right? But Rome came out of what? Rome just popped up on the scene. Who was popping before Rome? Historically, that would be Carthage, right? Hannibal, right? Phoenicia, right? What we call the ancient Mediterranean or the ancient Iberian, or what they call the Levantine or the Levant, or what they call the Phoenician expansion. The term Phoenician is where we get Phoenix and phonics from, right? So the very actualization of written words came from these people who traveled back and forth on the world at this time, because remember, we go back to the history where the whole thing was connected. So the nobility line that came all the way from people from the pre-flood, from the post-flood world of Gilgamesh, all the way up, let's say, to now. That nobility is us that's still here, that's present in these North, Central, and South Americas, as well as the greater world. But what has happened is that the connection to that part of our history, right, that would allow us to actualize it where we could be that today is all vested in the ideas that we are a broken people. And therefore, when somebody like, let's say, Markle, like you're saying, this chick, gets chosen out of the trough of willing supplicants, right? So remember, these people are Nazis. Remember, Harry's grandfather, there's pictures of him walking through Auschwitz on a tour because he was one of the people who invested in an enterprise. They talk all of this stuff about the Nazis and things like this, but you got to understand, they're there today. There's pictures of Harry online with the Nazi swastika and all that. You know what I'm saying? Right now. So it's not like he ever made a statement saying, oh, I'm not that or whatever. It's already assumed because the big secret is that Harry is not even Charles's son. You understand what I'm saying? So remember, you're talking about a people that practice what's called peerage. 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 Mm-hmm. And peerage is a form of consanguinity. Consanguinity is when you interbreed to maintain a certain family trait within the family.
Okay.
And these people practice transmogrification, which is a form of turning boys into girls and girls into boys. So Harry might have been born a girl, boy, you know, but they turned him into a boy, told him his father was Charles when really it wasn't, because Charles wasn't even a real married, wasn't even the one really that Diana wanted. So there's an Arab side to the German side, right? And these Arabized Muslims live like, you know, they're Muslims, but they are connected to the European royalty. So the guy, Dodi Fayette, that she was married before they killed her, when they killed them both, he was the dude that she was about to marry and pregnant when they outed her, when they offed her. You understand? So she comes from a long line, though, of women who were put in that position to be sacrificed after they had certain kids and did certain things. Like Princess Kelly of Monaco, who was an actress, again, from Hollywood, right? And what they do to her, they wound up driving her off the road with the Boston Brakes ritual, right? Died in a car crash, quote-unquote car crash. So when you look at the chick that they picked, this Markle chick, right, look at the roles that she's playing on the TV. What they want it to look like, or they want black women to fall into the dream that here you are, the Princess and the Frog, right? You get to be the princess, but for the whole movie, you the frog. You know what I'm saying? So whereas Snow White and these chicks, they don't even have those questions. Look at Melania Trump. There's straight pictures of her eating chicks' boxes out right now, right? On the net. They got images of this chick totally spread out. You understand? And nobody's saying nothing about that. That's the first lady of the United States, even though they always was hold the horse like that. What I'm saying is you didn't see that. Right. That wasn't something they allowed to be out. They done evolved to the point where they done elected somebody like Trump who's married to a porn star, who's basically a porn star. And then not only him, and then to the knowledge, all his wife is not even a citizen like that. She was born in Romania, wherever they got them chicks from. That's who he breed with. So again, what I'm talking about when it comes down now to the black people looking at it as racist, things like that, is that they're trying to sell an agenda. And the agenda is, black women, you need to choose up because now you're being chosen by white royalty to enter into the upper echelon of white supremacy. And if you agree to do it, you'll be able to, again, have dinner with the queen, the same queen that ritualistically been devouring babies and all this other shit from the day. Like, think about that. Now, look at her mother. Her mother is straight. When you look at her mother, you don't question what she is. You know what I mean? She's straight Asiatic, American born, Afro. She's descended from one of the first governors of Kent. She directly, because at the time that this was happening, all of those people were Asiatic. All of those people were melanated. All of those people were carbonated. All those people were quote-unquote black at the time. They didn't start becoming white in Europe until way after. We shut them up in Europe from the time of a Moor named Septimius Severus. This is where we get the name September from. Mm-hmm. And the word sever, meaning to cut. He took over and shut down all of the whole amalgamated Roman thing that they had been done and tried to institute some of the old influences that Carthage gave to Rome in the early aspect of the Republic. You understand? And then basically set on a building practice that reconsolidated the empire and set up 4 other direct Asiatic people from him to rule. You understand? And when Rome finally fell, let's say, all those many years in the future, it still fell to Asiatic people. It wasn't no Arabs, the people we call Arabs today. The people that was doing it back then, we would refer to them as, like in, let's say, Islamic terms, you would call them the Arabia, right? Whereas the Arabs today would be the Al-Mustafa Arabia, which means that they're imported, they're foreign to that place. Because the thing is, we're indigenous not just to America, but to the whole planet, man. And everybody's acting like we got to go somewhere else to be where we at. We got to be recognized by this nobility to be actually seen as people. Because what's happening is that everybody is feeding off our original nobility and identity because we have not settled upon what we are. You can't call us a people if every 25 to 30, 50 years we calling ourselves some different shit.
Right.
Chinese people from the time 1492 to right now, you know what I'm saying? Nobody is really in their original name. Like China, that's not the name of that place. That's Manchuria, man. You know what I'm saying? Japan, that's not the name of that place. That's Nihon. You understand? New Delhi, that's not the name of that place. That was Bombay. So Puerto Rico, that's not the name of that place. That's Boricua. That's not Panama. That's Araucanian. You see, when you refer to things and deal with the things as how your ancestors left them, you stay within that jurisdiction and maintain that nobility. Once you start referring to yourself as whatever they say you are, now you cease to have that nobility, and now you got to fall under what their so-called nobility is, which is a mirror, perverted version of yours. So they want us to think that when the European came here, that the European, again, was this white person. How could that be when these niggas could not even, they wasn't even bathing, G? How could they wasn't reading, they wasn't writing, they wasn't none of that. You couldn't have none of that if you wasn't connected to us. And at the time that this was going on, the empire that was rocking was referred to as the old Moorish or the Almoravian Empire. Because the Moroccans were the ones that were the direct descendants of the Phoenicians through the Moabites that were able to maintain the position of the ancient roots that went throughout the world, which is why we could go anywhere in the world and you could tell somebody that you were Moor and they give you a whole different perspective of yourself other than your own people here. But they don't want to identify with anybody that's ruling. They want to blame shit. You know what I'm saying? They want to claim Indian. But to be an Indian means that you can have that title taken away from you by the same people that denationalized you and made these white people Indian. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? So while we worried about this chick's nobility and the fact, she American, look, she's the first black. How is she the first black woman in the so-called royal family? When I got pictures of Charles V, the first Incan emperor, who happened to also be the Holy Roman Emperor, who also happened to be the King of England, Spain, and Ireland at the time, and he's just as darker than me. You hear what I'm saying?
This is Charles V.
This is Charles V, also known as Carlos Quintus, on the paper. I got a picture of him with the 7 Inca emperors up to him. They all straight Moorish and Moorish gear, and then when you get to him, he holding up a scepter with the divine king sign with a little gold cross on the side and a European crown. Because he was the first one adopted into the Inca as the emperor. They want you to think that white people came over and we just made them kings in our own shit. That didn't happen like that.
Right, yeah.
Come on now. Come on now. If a cracker came to your house right now and was like, look, I need some place to stay. You don't know this nigga. You're not going. If a black person came like that, you got to be weird. So why would we just let these people who, some people more Asiatics ain't never seen, and just give them free reign and shit? That's how it happened? That's how you want us to believe it happened? No, these niggas came with their Caucasian slaves that they had been inbreeding and doing whatever they was doing in Europe from the times of the Dark Ages and before. Let's even look at that. The term, you know how long an age is, man? An age is 2,119 years. So if they said it was in the Dark Ages, and they trying to say that that was only from Rome to the time from, let's say, 362 to, let's say, 1492. They're saying that all of that's less than 2,119 years. So if they said it was in the Dark Ages, you understand? Yeah. These motherfuckers they just got right. They just got civilized enough to pull this on us. Why? Because we disenfranchised, because we the ones that work with them to do what they're doing. And through the colony, the colony system was set up by these dirty Moors that wanted to break the empire in two because they was doing whatever they was doing. In Europe, they had a tendency to use these things as slaves. And as what they call Mameluke, which was like, or Janissaries, or like Christianized, Arabized, white Arabized slaves who they put through a regiment program to act as soldiers to fight for the order of Islam in whatever territory. And then if they survived, then they would be able to rent the territory from the Moor or the lord that they lived on. And then if enough of them survived, they was able to have a hamlet or something for themselves, so long as they paid tribute to the king, thus explaining the letter that George Washington wrote to the Sultan of Morocco. Remember, Morocco, the country, the kingdom, was set up in 1956. The county of Morocco in America was set up in 1851. The Treaty of Peace and Friendship from so-called Morocco was in 1787. So when I'm talking about I'm a Moroccan, I'm talking about the original shit that was already here before that shit that came over there. Because none of them people over there actually speak real Moroccan. They speak Arabic, they speak French, they speak all that other stuff. Our people were speaking Hebrew, Latin, Spanish. You understand what I'm saying? We have a distinct identity. But because we don't believe the story created by a white man, that Middle Passage shit was created by a white man. So I'm not saying that what we understand that slavery didn't happen. I'm saying that we're mislabeling what's really happening. Our people were prisoners of war, man. Our people was not no punks. Our people was not no people that you could just walk in somewhere and just take them over like that. That's not what happens, man. The state that we in now is nowhere equivalent to where we was at. The reason why they so hard on us now is because they know that.
Because they know the history.
Because they know. They know how it was, fam. They know that the reason why you call them white women Sally today is because we named them after the slave port that we brought them from in Saleh, Fez, or Saleh, Morocco. That's where you get Sally from. The German Moors used to come in and drop becks on them and then bring them back. Hey, and all of them people, those original Dutch, those original, Germans and all that, all them people was Moors. I could read you quotes where Ben Franklin said it. When he said the only white people on the planet was the Saxons and the English. And remember, there was no England on that island until the late 1898, when they founded the city of London. Mm-hmm. So again, our own people who even know this history is putting it out of context, which is why we so divided. But they not divided on what they know the real deal is. But if you want to act like you don't honor your ancestors, great. You see what I'm saying? So the nobility, tying it all back up to Homegirl, is really just a sign that they have reached a certain point in their history where they done bleached out and babied up and whatever they've done so much in their bloodline that they need a hoping somebody that's melanated kind of to help breathe life back into the family line. This nigga Charles, this nigga William is younger than me. He not even 30 yet. This nigga's bald. That's who you marrying? You marrying into that family? You married into them baby eaters? That's what you think that's a come up? And black women, I'm watching them on these media sites, and they, oh yes, sister, you doing it. That's how it's supposed to be. But then Tyrese get with a chick. You know what I'm saying? That's the same thing, the same type of mixture. But then something wrong with him. Now there is something wrong with him. But what I'm saying is, you can't be on it like that. Like if it's whack, it's whack across the board, man. It's not whack for him, but not whack for her. Like that shit is whack. Period. That's not a come up. Like she's not coming up. she about to get drawn in. You understand? We got it twisted. Our people got it twisted. Our people looking at these white people like they always got, and they don't have the answers. They never did. You really want to get into the real story, get the book Myths of the Negro Past by Melville Hershkowitz, one of the founders of the NAACP, the father of so-called Afrocentric or African history. This is the nigga who got the middle passage thing popping for everybody, and then that was dovetailed by the other eugenicists that started to perpetuate this reality of what we were, and he published that shit as a fiction novel. You talking about the Matrix? This is how they did that shit. Look it up. Alex Haley never wrote Roots. Roots happened. That was a plagiarized story from an African brother, and the book was called The African, meaning it was a story about an African. Mm-hmm. That's the difference between African slavery, Negro slavery, and slavery. They talk about each one individually because each one had a different circumstance. African slavery was imported so-called Moors from the continent, and the farmer wars that was brought over here to work off an indenture up until the late 1600s, and then they instituted this fake slavery program, right? Then you had slavery. That was the perpetual situation for white people abroad, everywhere. But they don't refer to that as slavery for white people. What they'll do is call it white slavery, or they'll call them Christian narratives or Christian subjugation narratives. Then you got Negro slavery. Negro slavery was not slavery at all. That was people being kidnapped, nobility, who had nations and all of that, and then were forced into this pseudo-servitude based upon lack of knowledge and based upon them giving up their nationality for whatever reason. And that has perpetuated today. And through those systems, once they created this, they denationalized the Moors to Indians, and once they got them into Indians, they denationalized them into other terms: Negro, Black, African, colored, all of those which meant property, and then sold the original names and birthrights of the names they recorded to Caucasian people, or so-called Native Americans, who are really the descendants of East Asians and so-called Mongolians, right, who traveled over, who will walk over the hot Arabian desert into the caves of West Asia, i.e. America, by the Moors, over what was called Beringia, which they refer to now as the Bering Strait, which is why camels, again, we want to really get into it, the first hump, they're indigenous to America and were exterminated at the same time the elephants were and the buffalo. Don't believe me? Look at all of the elephant carvings of the ancient Inca and Aztecs in South America. Where was they getting elephant pictures from? Where was they getting camel pictures from? He called the two-hump camels Bactrian camels. Because Bactria was one of the places where they would go to buy them when they were able to make it that far into Moorish territory. But Bactria, if we go back to the ancient times, was what they call a kingdom of satrap set up by Alexander the Great, General Clitus of Niger. Because Alexander the Great, right, was following the blueprint of Hannibal because his father, Philip, had signed a treaty of peace and fealty to the Carthaginian Empire. So really, Alexander the Great was fulfilling the plans of Hannibal. Mm-hmm. They didn't even exist on that level at that time. We talk about these people as basically hominids still. So Alexander the Great, that was a brother. Yeah. He was a Peloponnesian. He was Macedonian. Macedonians lived in the same Peloponnesian islands, what we now today call the Mediterranean. There was no such thing as Greek. That was the shit they created after 1945, after they kicked the Turks out and they needed a name for that country. And so they call them people Greek and then surmise Western civilization based off the so-called classical Greek. That's why they make a distinction. Ancient Greek, don't they? Ancient Greek, and then classical Greek. Classical Greek is the fake shit. Ancient Greek now is taking you into Macedonia, Corinthia, Dorian, the Corinthians, the Macedonians, the Dorians, the Etruscans, the Ionians, right? Even the Spartans in there. But again, we get all of this also from the perspective of these were also Hellenists, but the Hellenists was a part of the classical, see? Which means, again, it was some modern made-up shit that they gave people through the education to give them some sort of justification of existing outside of the stage, the status or stage of a hominid. They were upgraded in consciousness. And for whatever reason, our people started to basically, instead of locking them away and keeping them under control, started using them against one another. They said one of the greatest paintings that she paid, they said Elizabeth and Philip paid for, was this giant painting of a skull with maggots crawling out of it. Paid almost $15 million for this. Like, if you want to get paid, the story is you just do paintings of, like, grotesque shit and then get one of them brokers that cater to that. Mm-hmm. And they'll get you, especially anything with child abuse, child murder, anything like that. They'll pay handsomely for that. Have exhibits where everybody go, and then after that, they actually go eat the real baby. Like, this is what she marrying into. Mm-hmm. And again, Asiatic people, we so caught up in trying to make everybody else comfortable, these people are literally eating us. Literally. You can't blame these people for doing what they're doing. Regardless of who or what. They done conned everybody to thinking it's them. So again, the Holy Roman Empire was again established by Moors. It was allowed by the Moors of Andalusia and the so-called Moroccan Empire, because Rome, again, all of Europe and England was shut down. Because at this time, the Christians, the Hebrews, and the so-called Muslims or Muslims, you couldn't tell the difference between any of them, because they all referred to God. The Christians referred to God as Allah. The Muslims or the Muslims referred to God as Allah. The Hebrews referred to God as Eloah. This is where the word aloha, the Hawaiians, when they be saying it when you come through, because the royal family in Hawaii, last name was Ali with 2 L's. So what that mean? It was Muslims in the ancient Hawaiian kingdom? Yes, because all of this was part of the empire that we was in, and then afterwards got fractured. You want to trap these Indian dudes up, these Moors that want to be Indians, these black Asiatics always claim that they're Indian shit. Remember, when we was growing up, it was disrespectful to call somebody an Indian. Remember?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
But then it became cool because now Native Americans have to practice Indian culture because they're not of the original shit. So a Native American and a Indian are not an American Indian, because an American Indian is somebody of the copper-colored brown races that existed here or was born here. So when we talked about we had Indian in our family, we talk about the tribal designation that the family came from. But that tribal designation that was domestic also had an international connection that was imperial. Mm-hmm. Therefore, you could be Smith, so you could be John of the Smith Cherokees, right, of the Moor clan of Bay. Or you could be Abraham of the Robinson Choctaws of the clan, of the Moorish clan Ill. You understand? The way you know it's like that, the way that these Indians be talking today, you ask them, well, if you were part of this tribe or that tribe, show me the flag that your tribe had in the 1700s. None of them could show you that. Because they didn't have no individual flag for all of them in the set. They had coats of arms, something close to that. But they didn't have that. The flags and stuff didn't get incorporated until after the original nations was broke up and started referring to them as tribes or bands. Because the nation was under the protection of the empire. You understand what I'm saying? So you had the empire, you had the kingdoms, and then you had the dominion. That's why you have Choctaws who were called kings and queens, because they all was in their own dominion. But they all raised the red flag or the white flag, because these was the flag that represented all of us, the blood, when they say one blood and all of that. When you look at the maroon flag, it's red. When you look at the flag, the Moroccan flag, original was red. When you look at the original Cherokee flag, or the one that they adopted, it's red. Why? Because in Jamaica and ex-Jamaica, we was maroons. In the Philippines, we was Moros. In the Southeast Islands or whatever, we was Maori, right? In America, in North Africa, we're Moors. So again, so when I say I'm a Moor, I'm not saying I'm not a Hebrew. You understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm not of Egyptian descent. I'm not saying I'm not of Carthage, or I'm not any of that. I'm saying I'm all of that, but I'm under the situation that was popping right before shit went to hell. So I can trace whatever rights or whatever things I got to shit that exists in the world that apply to me today, so long as I can identify with it within the nature that my people set up. All law was set up by us. That's why Allah is all law. It's all law. It ain't got nothing to do with some mystery. It ain't got something to do with some goddamn Arab. That's my other thing with Asiatics. They always giving their power up to all these other niggas. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Soon as something happened with homegirl, now she important. But nobody gave a damn about this chick until she fell under the thing with this guy Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody figured out before that. But they've been prepping everybody for this from the Scandal shit. Remember Scandal?
Right, yeah, the show, yeah.
You know, look at cities like farms and humans like animals. Like any farm, the animals are there to produce certain things. So, in the American farm, the cracker is he's the farmer John. He's doing the run shit. But then the niggas that's running shit, the pigs, they the ones that get rid of all of the filth. Ain't that what pigs really do in real life? Like, that's what they there to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got the horses. The horses represent the transportation. Transportation was the original name of white slavery. When white people would get sentenced to slavery, they wouldn't use the term slave. So they said, you've been sentenced to 110 years or 10 years transportation. That's why you have a Department of Transportation, because they're not talking about the movement of things. They're talking about the movement of things as applied to people. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You know, I remember to do. Go ahead, Mark.
I remember reading the first book that introduced me to these concepts that started me changing my way of thinking was this book called I think it was Blacked Out Through Whitewash by the man Suzar.
Yeah,
and
Suzar.
Right. And I want you to talk to the family about. I'm gonna name some names that was named in the book that kind of threw me off. She had a picture of Beethoven as a black man. She had the picture of Queen Charlotte. I'm not sure. I hear people talk about Shakespeare and King James.
Shakespeare.
Talk to me about, because when you say these individuals is black or Moorish, people think you're reaching. Like, oh, everybody's black, nigga. Damn, here we go again with that shit. So could you talk to me about? Yeah, it is, right?
That's the point. And the only people that don't want to hear that is black people. That's how you know. Because everybody else knows. Why would the people that kicked us out, since they kicked us out, dress up in our clothes and paint their faces black as shit for the past 200 years since then? If they wanted us out so bad, why? Because they didn't necessarily want us out. They wanted to have their own version of what they saw us having. So when we talk about the original indigenous or the original ability of Europe or Europa, remember, there was no Europe between the fall of Rome. Even in Rome, there was no Europe. That's not what they called it. They didn't call that until the classical era. And even then, they named it after Europa, the original queen that they referred to as the Venus of Willendorf. That was the model that all the Neanderthals would carve in their caves. That's why it's found wherever you find Bigfoot's at, you find this little thing, because that was the image of the god that they would pray to. This voluptuous so-called black woman. Understand? So the original nobility of Europe that was there had been there from the times of Kemet. What we call Scotland, for instance, that was called Scotia. You ever heard of the story of Jason and the Argonauts?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's all about the Moors from Egypt. Excuse me, Tamaray. Ta meaning the, Murray or Morte, meaning Moor, right? Everybody talk about Kemet, Chem, Egypt, but let's talk about what the people call themselves, which was Pomeranians. And these Moors, Pomeranians, aka Egyptians, right, went up into Scotia and established a line of colonies there that became the basis of what we call Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and all of that, going all the way back then. Then further in history, you have waves of Moors when all of that was under the jurisdiction, again, of Phoenicia or Carthage. Phoenicia, in terms of the expansion aspect of it, was, again, another inherited cousin empire to the Egyptian empire, so-called Moorish Empire in that way, which was then merged into the point where all of the ancient texts have been translated into what we call Punic Latin. And then Latin became the language while the indigenous languages were taught, but mainly were allowed to the custom, whereas the universal language, Moorish Latinum, was now spoken throughout. You know what I'm saying? So everybody knew how to do that. That's why Latin today is what? A dead language, because it's the language of law, the language of medicine, it's the language of botany, right? Everything that's real in the world. The crackers don't speak Latin. The Pope and them, the Latin they speaking is called Vulgate Latin. I mean, it's not even real Latin. It's like pig Latin, literally. The only people that can speak that is us. But they didn't make you think that your first language was Swahili. But you're not from Africa. But you're not from there. Directly. You understand what I'm saying? Or you're not from there directly. So you could claim that. You know, I could claim the Confederate flag as my own, but that don't mean that it was. I could see how they manipulated it to represent the symbol of the cross of Osiris now in this flag, and then people behind the Confederacy using that to promote their own agenda.
What about certain land over here, Brother Aseer? When we think of
in the land.
Hello?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like California or Charlotte. We hear about these being named after black people. Could you give the people a history on that?
Yeah, because this is the northwestern, right? So when we say northwestern, we're talking about everything on, let's say, the upper East Coast, all the way west, right? And it's also the southeastern. So we're talking about everything from South America on the East Coast. So all the way from Alaska, right, to Chile represented the expanse or boundary lines of the let's say, empire of mothers and sons that existed over here in the various things that became tribes. You know what I'm saying? But in terms of the actual nations that existed, very few actually existed in that capacity. Because to be a nation meant that you had to have a flag and had international business. And what these so-called black Americans will tell you is that the Indians would just regale to the United States. They didn't go nowhere. But when you read the story of the Moors in the Song Empire, they was bringing pumpkins and corn to Manchuria, aka China, in the mid 7th century. Pumpkins ain't indigenous to Africa. Corn ain't indigenous to Africa. You know what I'm saying? So where was they getting this from? Like I said, the original camels that existed here, the only thing we have left in the original remnants of those are the things we call llamas. You understand? That's why the sheiks of the Indian Persian Moor dynasty, they will refer to the mystic ones as what? As llamas, as the holy camels that bear the water, that march the devil across the hot Arabian desert into the caves of West Asia. This was a way of life for us that was constantly taught to us orally. By the time we started losing, we were still in control because most of the people that looked white was really black. You know what I'm saying? Because we had bred it in so much. Why you think in order to be in the mob, you got to be Sicilian? Because they got to trace your moms back, your white moms back, to the first Mameluke chick or Pantagonian blonde woman that had sex with that Moor going back to 711 AD. To prove that you had some sort of verification. Then after the Moors lost power, they tried to create the opposite in order to be Spanish. you had to prove that you was an old-time Spaniard, meaning that you was a Spanish person prior to the establishment of the Moorish Empire and the Spanish dominions. But the Spanish dominions are anything and anywhere that Spain owned. So that's California, that's Mexico, that's Cuba, right? That's the Philippines, right? If it ain't the Philippines, that's the Philip. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And Philip was a Moor. You look up old ancient pictures of Philip. He looked just like Barry White on one of these. That's how King James looked. That's how Shakespeare and them look. Why do you think they dress like that? Whenever you see pictures in TV shows with Games of Thrones and all that, what you see a bunch of white people in the castles with the animal skins and all that chilling, and then you got the people who lived in the gutter, right? The ones that lived behind pens like animals. And then the knights would always live on the castles because we'd always live above all that. This is where they got it from. That's all I'm saying.
Wow, man. I mean, you got such a thorough understanding of our story, what they call history, that it's like, man, listen, bro, like it's real. It's good for the family out there. Let the people know what do you. What I know you got a lot going on where they could get more of this information. I know you got classes and you got a website and YouTube channel and all that. Let the people know how they could get in touch with you so they could teach their children, so they could teach their wives, their husbands, their relatives, all this beautiful information.
Thank you, Noble. Anybody want to hit me up directly for, private consults or whatever, you can always hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com. If you go to www.gumroad.com and type in Aseer, the Duke of Tears in the chat, you will see a list of all of my online classes that we've been doing for the past, 8 years. Also, if you go to www.aseerthedukeoftears.com, you can get some of the older materials that we did, like when we first started out with stuff. Because a lot of that stuff, believe it or not, is still relevant. I look at some of that stuff we were talking then, that joint we did on the street that time.
Oh, that was off the hook.
They just would talk about some of the stuff we was talking about in that. That's what I mean. Like, we've been on the street for this. We've been, in the cold for this, P. Niggas
in the cold for
all
real.
These new dudes, for real, fam, before this whole cult of personality that was created around all the lecturers and all that, we actually had to go out and actually meet and talk to the people and do stuff. Yeah. It wasn't all of this hyperbole and infighting amongst Moors that's in the temple, Moors that's not in the temple, against RBGs, against the Israelites, against the Hebrews, against all these people. We didn't get down like that. All of that is tribalism, which means that we're in the level, if we were talking about people coming together, we're at the stage of feudalism. After feudalism, you go into deep tribalism. And then from the tribalism, something is settled by which now you start dealing with the collectivism of people now moving towards a nation. But before that, you got a civil war. And that's where the U.S. and these people are at right now. So at the same time, because Trump is a Gemini, at the same time he's going to do something negative, he's going to do something positive, but he won't tell you about the positive. You got to check it. One of the best things this nigga did was basically mandate that he was about to put in a bill that all vaccinations, that's an ixnay now. It was not mandatory, and states can't force you to do it. Nobody can force you to do it. He said if they do, the federal government coming back, he was shutting them down. Also, he set up this thing called the Conscientious Religious Freedom Association or whatever it is. This is tacked on to something that was under the Obama and the Bush and the other one's administration called the Religious Freedom Restoration Act. And basically, it's an act that says if you're part of some sort of religious identity or cultural heritage, that no state government has the right to come in and try to force you into statutory contracts. He's now created a division for people to deal with that directly. Obama ain't do that. And again, I'm not bigging up Trump. I'm just saying that this nigga's a Gemini. So as a Gemini, you got to look at how he is. Like I said, I think it's two of them. But at the same token, the same way he'll do that is in the same way he'll come out and say, okay, well, all these countries are shithole countries, right? But at the same time, You got to understand, our African brothers and sisters got their own countries, man. They got a whole continent to themselves, Steve. A whole continent to themselves. They can literally do what they want to do. If they told all of the European corporations, look, all y'all got to get out of Africa until we have at least 30 years. The African Union could impose this, that if you're going to stay, you're going to have 100% labor supported by the indigenous people that's there, where they automatically get automatic health care compensation, all of that, or pop, for as long as they work for the company, that you got to invest in the infrastructure of the shit, and you got to limit the foreign foreign immigration from your country to a minimum to within the districts that's allowed within our country, and impose this for 20 years. In 5 years, Africa would look like Wakanda. All of Africa would look like Wakanda, my nigga. All of it. Wow. Because they would have nobody outside stopping it. I done watched the Africans build a hydrogen generator where this nigga is fueling the electricity in a area of 3 miles because the government ain't saying they got no money. So he done made it out of garbage.
Yeah, out of
banana peels and shit, my nigga. Yeah. Come on, man. Niggas is playing. So you mean to tell me you got that level of ingenuity in your country and you can't subsidize these people to live out of the poverty level that you got them in, but you will open up 100% access to tourism from these countries that don't even divest in your country other than the initial payment to come? Nah. So, and then again, now me in America, I'm supposed to look at these people as these are the people I'm supposed to want to go and be with. Like they got the answer for me. No, they don't. Not if you got your own country, you can't get it together. But again, people want to research the real joint. Look up Melville Herskowitz and the Myth of the Negro Past. And in that book, he basically created the fake hypothesis that black people have no culture and that the culture was based upon their slavery and this, and that. And then other people piggyback behind that. A guy named, forget the other dude's name, but he wrote the so-called Africanist papers. And then from there, they started funding the NAACP along with the help of Ida B. Wells, W.E.B. Du Bois, A. Philip Randolph was working with J. Edgar Hoover and Charles Napoleon, the descendant of Napoleon that set up the FBI. These are the niggas that set up the NAACP to break up Marcus Garvey and put him in jail. That's how Ida B. Wells knew who was getting lynched when they was getting lynched and all of that, because this was all part of the situation. Because the coup d'etat happened during what they call the Wilmington race riots. I have the imperial evidence that there was a racial riot while the Moors was away fighting the Spanish-American War. All the white people got together under the Union Society, Magna Carta, and they decided that they were going to break up all of the indigenous governments, the county governments that were under the Republic and the national form of government. And they put that in history under the Wilmington race riots that resulted in the destruction of all the Black Wall Streets and all of the so-called Moorish towns and communities that was existing. And then they killed them people. That's why when we look at these pictures of the so-called slaves getting lynched, again, we got to break the mind control. A lot of them people you see in them pictures, they look like they was dirty and stuff, but some of them people was generals, mayors, governors, presidents. You understand what I'm saying? Chiefs, warlords, here in America. A lot of these people were people of substance that occupied the county government, the state and the level of government that was under the Republican form of government, which was under the free national aspect that was being brought back into existence through the Freedmen's Bureau. And all of these people, after that time, fell under that jurisdiction and were killed. And then the white people came in and then reinstituted or reincorporated the towns. That's why you see a lot of a lot of the states and the corporate counties were set up after or in the late 1800s. The ones that was founded back in the 1700s was the ones that we founded directly. They broke down, burnt all the records, killed everybody, held their own elections, and then put their own people in. And then made us second-class citizens in all of the districts. and then instituted the segregation to keep us from moving up, and then Jim Crow and the black codes to deprive the generational wealth. Then on top of that, all of us that could claim our Moorish or so-called indigenous descent would now have to claim Indian, but because the $5 Indians had come in, they had now took our names, right, and then were able to get all of the land grants and the subsidies and the money that they was giving everybody from that point on. They still get checks from that. Then they created the quantum blood theory to keep us from going back in there without claiming descent from some freed American African slave, when really they married into our families, took our names, took the title nobilities off of them, and then put us in the situation. That's why in Django, Carl Candy was the face, but Steven was writing the checks. Because the blacks let them do it.
Right.
And those blacks are the Boule and the so-called affluent blacks who initially were the original American Indians that joined up with the Freemason shit and sold their birthright to the white man so that way they could get parcels of land within his jurisdiction. Because some of them were disenfranchised because most of us was killed off. Then once they got rid of that, once they got rid of Garvey, they then instituted the new real history, the reconstructed history now, that we all slaves, when all of that really came from a Jew. Check the records. The person that's receiving the royalties for the Roots and the Roots movies and the Roots miniseries is a Jewish man named Max Fisher. Alex Haley died with none of that connected to his name because it was a fiction. And that's why you have so many blacks in this country screaming to talk about we African and this and that. But if you ask them niggas to go over there and get an African nationality, they ain't going to do it. Because the Africans will tell you that you're an American. When you leave this country, you're an American. That's it. When you come back, you have to define what kind of a person you are. And if you're a citizen of the United States, you can't be an American. Just like if you're an American, you can't be a citizen of the United States. One is a people and a republic, the other is a corporation and a part of what's called these United States, which basically means London City, Washington City, Vatican City, and Israel.
Oh, indeed. Once again, brother, I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to have the brother's information in the description bar, so you can holler at the brother and get at him for some more information.
Thank you.
Brother Rich, Aseer the Duke of Tears. Yeah. Anything else you want to tell the family before we close out?
Yes, thank you guys for the support over the years. Thank you for always checking in and supporting what we've been doing. If you guys, again, want to holler at me, do so at houseofella@hotmail.com. Also, I want to give thank you again, Brother Rich, for having me on, as well as all the original alumni of what this became. Shout out to them, all of the ancestors and the elders in it, all of the fallen ancestors, Coakley, Wilson, Sadie, who else we lost? Gregory, Clark, Blair, any of them. Honorable mention, Bobby Hemmett, honorable mention, Brother Daoud, honorable mention, Phil Valentine, or like I said, all the original alumni that was doing it, that inspired us to do it. Everybody that, even the ones that was doing it, don't do it no more. If you was doing it from your heart, just know that it still resonates to this day, at least in me. And again, man, if we don't support ourselves, if we don't get off the tribalism and the feudalism, it's just going to lead to a civil war. And, everybody wanted heaven, but like they say, nobody want to die. So there's more important things that's out there. This Libya situation, all of that. That's really, again, how you got a situation like that when you got a whole continent of black people. You dig what I'm saying? You mean to tell me 3 of them countries can't get together in the African Union and go invade and shut that down? No. They can, but they not. So if they not, then somebody else got to do it. But we can't do nothing until we help ourselves. And we can't help ourselves if we still if these people are still the custodian, beneficiary, and trustees of us. So don't bitch about what these people doing if you're not working every day to establish some sort of individual society or individual government or self-government or state or trust or identity or nationality that's distinctly yours as being born here or whatever, without somebody telling you or debating you or making you doubt what you are. Nobody can tell you what you are but you. So if these niggas can trans themselves into being boys to girls and girls to boys, you can't tell me I can't be a transnational and transit my nationality and my race and my fucking financial situation into what it is. Because if not, then it's discrimination. And let me tell you, these niggas do not want to go to court with people like me with this shit, because it'll all come out. So again, holla at your boy, houseofl@hotmail.com. If anybody wants to send donations, you could do so through PayPal to dukeoftears@gmail.com. Again, thank you, Brother Rich, for having me on, and continue the great work, bro.
Indeed. On that note, we sign out, family. We see you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Hey. Yeah. Black magic. Hey. You ain't never seen a man turn leg gold with his hands. You ain't never seen a man get a queen wet with a glance. Water turn wine, whole wide world mind in my mind. In and out of time, my light shine bright for the blind. Something about the way I do it. 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 Said I'm gonna be a millionaire soon, but I already knew it. I'm a death of bullets fluid. All this winning therapeutic. Something about the way I do it. Something about the way I do it. They be trying to drain my energy up with the battery is not included. Women trying to be recruited. Let them do it, then I bought it. What is cute, then she folded. Something about the way I do it. I remember playing ring around the rosy. Now I got a pocket full of OZs. Water dollars, wallet full of old cheese. Got a Glock, a cock and pop a police. Block a boom, shaka laka, bada shot him while he rock a rosary. Got your mama watching out the nosebleed. Sloppy toppy while I'm trying to go sleep. Something about the way I do it. I ball out like a nudist hooping. Or who's your student?